Resourceful Designer, episode 154, 4 Organizing Principles to Help You as a Designer.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now your host. He still has every comic book he ever bought, Mark DeCote.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm always happy to discuss running a graphic design business with you. In this week's episode, I'm going to be sharing 4 principles that should help you become better organized. I'm also going to share a resource of the week to help you become more secure in today's digital age, before ending with a question from Antonio, who is asking for advice for someone just entering the design field. But before I get to all of that, just give you a little bit of an update on what I've been up to. I'm still plugging away at that personal project I've mentioned a few times on the podcast, making some good headway on it, and I'm hoping to have something done pretty soon. And I may even decide to share it with you. We'll have to wait and see. Now, I had a fun project this week. I had to design a logo to go on the back of a boat. Now, I know at this time of year where I am in Eastern Ontario in Canada, I look out my window and there's a couple of feet of snow out there, and it is way below freezing. But those people that own boats, they're already itching for the springtime and the thaw and being able to get their boat out on the water again. Well, this one client contacted me and he wanted to name his boat. And he didn't want just normal letters like most people had. He wants an actual logo for the back of his boat. So that was a little bit interesting. The boat's going to be called the Coralie. I've been having fun working on that. And on an interesting turn of events, I was actually contacted by a company to do a whole bunch of design works, but it just so happens it's the company my son just got hired at, and I turned them down because of that. My son was just hired. He started his first day of work this Tuesday, and it was during a company meeting, or it was actually a get-together. The company, they took all the employees out to a hockey game. And during the hockey game, they got talking, and Ryan mentioned that his dad is a graphic designer, and they said, oh, well, we have some work that we can use a graphic designer for. And they reached out, and I politely turned down because my son works there. You might be saying, well, why? What's wrong with that? Well, the issue is my son is there on a probationary period for now. Ryan is an aerospace engineer, and he's at this company on a probationary period for the first 6 months, at which point at any time they can let him go. And during this period, I just don't feel comfortable taking them on as a client, just in case something happens and they end up having to let my son go, and then, just the feelings and all that. So I just said, it's safer at this point. I thanked them very much, and I just said, you'd be better off finding somebody else. So it was potentially some good money, some good projects there, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. So that's a little bit of what I've been up to this week. And if there's any indication through the Facebook group, you guys have been really busy. I see lots of activity in the group, people posing questions, people sharing work, people asking for advice. I love the community I've built over there. And if you're not already part of the Resourceful Designer Facebook group, you can join by heading over to resourcefuldesigner.com/group, and that'll redirect you to Facebook where you can join the group. Now, make sure you do answer the 3 questions that are asked whenever you click the join button. If you don't answer those questions, I will not let you in. I don't even look to see who you are. If the questions are not answered, I decline the request to join the group. But if you do answer the questions, you're more than welcome to join the community. Now, this week's Resource of the Week. Now, this week's resource is an open source checklist of resources designed to improve your online privacy and security. It's a checklist with links to all sorts of resources to help you out and to help you keep track of things as you implement them. And they cover interesting things such as how to encrypt your text messages whenever you're using text to communicate with somebody. I didn't even know there was a way to encrypt that. They review your social media privacy settings, or reviewing permission settings on your phones or devices for things like location services, and even your camera settings. So anyways, I looked through the list and there's all sorts of stuff. So if you spend a lot of time online and if you're worried about your privacy, your security, you may want to take a look. It's just a checklist for you to go through, and each item on the list has links to more information you can find out about that particular thing. So if this is something that you're curious about or interests you or you want to implement, you can visit security check. Oh, this is a strange one. It's security checklist, but it's .st at the end. So it's securitycheckli.st. So that's an interesting domain there. And if you're not sure of that spelling, I will have the link to this in the show notes. You can check it out at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 154. And now, 4 organizing principles to help you as a designer. Now, I was recently leafing through an old business magazine I found that was, I think it was dated back to the early 2000s. It was a Canadian magazine, and I don't even think they publish anymore. But anyways, the article that I came across was on organization skills. Specifically, organization skills to help you regain control over your schedule, your environment, and your life. And although this article wasn't about design, it was just about business in general, I found a lot of what it said still applies to today's businesses, even though it's an old article, and it can apply to us as designers. So I decided to put my own spin on the article and insert some of my own knowledge to bring you 4 basic organization principles to help you as a designer. So number 1 is clear out the clutter. In today's society, it's not uncommon to feel overloaded. We deal with too much stuff, too many obligations, too many tools, too many resources, just too much information. We've got hundreds of channels to choose from on TV. We've got an email inbox that is just overflowing with things to get to. We have all the different social medias we deal with, not to mention clients, family, friends, and everything. So it's not uncommon to feel overloaded. Now, clearing out the clutter means doing away with anything unnecessary. Clutter is stuff that takes up time, space, energy, and money. So start reviewing all the things that do that take up time, take up space, take up your energy, and take up your money. And make yourself a plan to clear out as much of that clutter from those 4 areas that you can. Tackle them one at a time and free them up. Free up some space. Free up your energy. Free up your time. Free up your money. I recently went through and deleted or unsubscribed from a whole bunch of email lists that kept showing up in my inbox, and I realized that I don't remember the last time I actually read one of these. I just look, see the title, and delete. So why should I keep doing that? It's taking up time, and believe it or not, it is taking up energy. So I unsubscribed. There's some services that I use that I did the same recently as well, where they were costing me money, and I realized that I'm not getting my money's worth out of these, so I unsubscribed. Save a little bit of money there. So clear out the clutter. Now, organization principle number 2 is a place for everything. Now, the number 1 reason for clutter is not having a set place for things. In order to be organized, you need to have a system in place to organize your things. And I know it sounds a little bit funny because I often talk about what a mess my desk is. But if you actually do look at my office, I have plenty of drawers to put stuff in. I have a filing cabinet. I have shelves. And a lot of stuff has its place. So maybe you need to do something like that too. If you have a lot of clutter, is to find a place to organize those things. And that may be getting hanging file folders to put in a drawer, getting a filing cabinet for your office, or even one of those cardboard storage boxes that you can put things in. Now, this also means you should have an organization strategy for your client files and your folders on your computer itself. This doesn't only apply to physical papers and things, but the electronic files you get, the way you manage your email, the way all your client files and all your design resources, all your fonts, the way everything is organized. Now, I did go into more depth on file management way back in episode 22 of the podcast, which was titled File Management for Graphic Designers. And you can listen to that one at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 22. But whether you're talking about physical papers, books, or electronic files and emails, having a clearly designated area for your, and I'll say quote unquote, stuff will make it more likely that that stuff will end up where it needs to be. And when that stuff is where it belongs, it makes it much easier and faster to find it in the future when you need it. That's the time-saving part of an organization strategy, knowing where things are. And even though my desk is a mess, everything that's in this mess does have a place. And whenever I do get into one of my kicks, usually on a weekend, I'll look at my office and I'll go, well, I'm not working today, but today's a good day to clean up. It doesn't take me long because all this stuff on my desk, I know where it needs to go. It might be in a filing cabinet. It might be up on my shelf. It might be in the recycling bin. So make sure you have a place for everything. Now, the third organization strategy is develop a system, or systems, plural. I just talked about organizing your quote-unquote stuff, but what about your time? You need to organize your time as well. You can go about your daily activities in one of two ways. You can either do things randomly, meaning you have to figure out how to do things each and every time you do them, or you can work out systematically, where you have a set way of doing those things each and every time you do them. So having a system in place can help you with time management. And systems can apply to any activity you do, any job, any task. Anything from designing a logo to a website, to invoicing clients, to collecting your taxes at the end of the year or your tax information at the end of the year. When you have systems in place, you end up spending less energy figuring out how to do things because you have a system in place. Instead, it becomes automatic. I have a system I follow for building websites. It's a step-by-step list of everything I need to do in order to set things up to get started. Things like installing WordPress, then installing each plugin. I have a checklist. I install this plugin, then that plugin, and then how to configure everything. It's all on my list so that I know I can do this. It's really fast. I get it done, and then the website's ready for me to start building upon. Now, part of my website building system also includes laying out structure for the website. And that can involve pen and paper and drawing out what I want to do, figuring out the content for each page, putting those pages together. How are they going to be linked? What images are going to go there? I have a system for putting all of that together before even starting to build the site. Then I go through and I build the site according to my system, according to the diagrams that I've put together, the wireframings or whatever you want to call them. And then finally, I have a system for testing the site to make sure that everything is hunky-dory, that I didn't miss any links, that all the alt tags are done, and I have this system in place. So having a system makes it easier for me because I can follow a list and it saves me time. I'm not going randomly thinking, okay, now what do? Do I do this? Or I can do that. Follow a system. When you have systems in place, you spend your time and your effort focused on completing the task instead of figuring out how to do the task, which in turn allows you to finish that task much more quickly. So that's organizing principle number 3. And the final organizing principle is review and revise your systems. Having systems in place is wonderful. I just told you about how I go about building a website. They definitely help you become more organized, which is the purpose of today's topic, organization. But that's only providing that your systems are still effective. If you're using the same systems that you put in place a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, there's a good chance that they aren't as effective as they were, and it could actually be impeding you, preventing you from moving forward or even having a better system. So don't fall in the rut of doing things over and over simply out of habit, just because it's how you've been doing them for so long. Every once in a while, you should ask yourself these 3 questions about your familiar routines or your systems that you have in place. Question number 1, does it even need to be done? Sometimes we have a system in place to do something and it becomes redundant. We don't have to do that anymore, but we keep doing things out of habit. So go over your systems and figure out if there's anything that doesn't need to be done. Don't let the quote unquote busy work dictate your time just because it's become a habit that you're used to doing. Now, question number 2 you should ask yourself on whether or not your systems are still working is this something that needs to be done by you? And it's funny, when I was reading through the article and I came across, it wasn't exactly worded the way they had it in the article, but the way they had it, it got me thinking, because I just mentioned my system for setting up websites to begin working on them. How I've got a checklist of install WordPress, install this plugin, that plugin, that plugin, and then configuring each plugin, what has to be done. But then I realized after reading this article that this system is the same for every single website I build. I go through this same thing. It doesn't matter what website it is. This starting procedure is identical. And I've got it down pat. I don't even have to look at my list anymore. I've done it so many times. I know exactly what needs to be done. But is this something that I need to be doing? And in reality, no, it's not. I just realized that as I was coming up with this episode topic and I was writing out some notes, some points to talk about, it dawned on me that that step that might not take me very long to do, but that's some time that I can get back because it's repetitive work that I don't need to be doing. I can easily find somebody. Now, I don't know. I haven't reached out to my virtual assistant to see if this is something she can handle. Maybe I'll have to hire somebody else to do this. But it's definitely something that I can delegate, and it's definitely something I'm going to look into now. All I would need to do is find somebody that knows how to install WordPress and knows how to install some plugins, some themes, and how to configure them. I could even record a short video explaining them exactly what to do, and then let them do it. And then every time I have a website, I can just contact them and say, hey, I've got a new website. Here's the URL. Can you set it up for me? And then I can go about doing my own stuff. I could spend that time that I would be spending putting that together instead by developing the site structure, that wireframe. I could be spending time doing that. And then when I'm done all that and I'm ready to actually start building the site in WordPress, the site would be there waiting for me because somebody else did it for me. So that second question is very important whenever you're looking at your systems. Is this something that needs to be done by you? This system is one I've had in place for years. And yes, I have reviewed it. I've had tweaked it as new plugins come in and things. I've tweaked it over time. But now I'm thinking, I don't even have to be doing this. I can find somebody else to do it for me. Now, the third and final question you should ask yourself regarding your systems is this the most efficient way to do this? Or is there an easier or quicker way to do this? Sometimes passing this off or delegating it is not the answer. Maybe you do have to do it. But are you just following the system because it's something you've always done that way? Maybe there's an easier way to do it. Maybe there's a new tool on the market that'll allow you to do this. I've recently saw mentioned in several Facebook groups, and I can't remember what it's called, but there's a new tool out that's used to gather all the assets. When you create a logo for a company, it'll gather all the assets and put them all together, create all the different file formats for you very easily. So that's something I do automatically. When I design a logo, I automatically save it as a JPEG, as an EPS file, as a PNG, do the vertical, do the horizontal, and all the different formats in order to give my clients. But now I saw that there's this tool that does it. Now, is it worth it? I haven't actually looked into it, but I've heard from some other people that are using it that they're enjoying it, and they say it saves them some time. So that's the thing about the systems. I have a system on how to put everything together to give it off, to hand off to a client. But is it the most effective way? Is it the most efficient way? Is there an easier or quicker way to do it? And sometimes it may cost you a little bit of money, but in the long run, it could end up saving you a lot of money. So when you're organized and everything is working like a well-oiled machine, your life feels in order. And you'll not only be happier because of it, you'll be more productive. And if you're more productive, there's a good chance that your business will grow because of it. So take a few minutes and think about these 4 organizing principles. 1, clear out the clutter. 2, find a place for everything. 3, develop systems. And 4, review and revise those systems. Get yourself organized, and you'll have a much better chance of success. Now, I would love to know what you thought of this topic. Was it informative? Did you learn anything? Did I put you to sleep? Leave me a comment for this episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 154. And now, this week's question of the week. This week's question comes in from Antonio. It says, "Hi, Mark. I'm studying graphic and web design. I'm from Spain, and I started to listen to your podcast for homework. After so many years in the business, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out?" Well, thank you for the question, Antonio. And this is a very broad question. I mean, there's so many different things, and without talking to you one-on-one, it's hard to really answer. But as a general rule, the very first thing I would say is anybody just starting out, freelance or working for yourself may not be the best option. I'm a strong believer in having to put in your hours working for somebody else, whether that's as an in-house designer for some company, working for an agency, you can work at a print shop like I did. Anywhere that you're going to be doing graphics, whether it's graphic design, web design, whatever you want to work in, find some place to work, because the education you will get through it is almost more valuable than the education you get at school. There's a big difference between the knowledge that you learn in school and the life experience you get by working for somebody in the field. And when I say working for somebody, I'm talking about working somewhere where there are other designers. Don't just go become an in-house designer and you be the only designer. Try to find a job where you're working with other people that you can learn. They'll teach you the shortcuts. They'll teach you the ins and outs of how to deal with clients, how to deal with time management, how to deal with file structures and creating systems that I just was talking about. So that would be my number one point, is simply find employment somewhere where you're working with your peers to help you learn and understand the industry. I find anybody that comes fresh out of school and starts freelancing or starts their own business and starts working for themselves, they really lose out on a lot of that. And in my experience, a lot of those don't end up lasting. Some of them just get tired of the business, they don't like it, and they end up leaving design as a profession. Now, a couple of other points maybe. Never stop discovering, learning, looking at things. There's so many aspects of design, even if it's not something you do. Learn to appreciate those things. I am not a painter, I am not an artist, but I can learn to look at art and pick out things. And sometimes those things will help me in my design. It'll help me with color choices, it'll help me with layout, it'll help me with associations between elements. So if you're a web designer, you can still learn stuff by looking at print design. Or if you're a print designer, you can still learn stuff by looking at web design. And if you're a print or web designer, you can learn stuff from package design, industrial design, furniture design, all sorts of different things. So never stop examining and looking at things. It's part of being a creative person. It should almost be natural that you want to explore everything. Even stuff in nature. Look at the trees, look at the clouds, and try to learn something from them. And the last bit of advice I'd give to you and to anybody who's just starting is never stop creating. Even if you're not working, or even if you are working, follow your passion and just keep creating, even if it's outside your space. I don't do it very often, but I love working with wood. I love building things. I love building tables and chairs and that sort of thing. I'm not good at it. I'm okay, but you'd never find my material in some high-end furniture store, but I still enjoy doing it. It's just the time, the knowledge, the creation. Just never stop working on your passions, on whatever it is you like to do. Sometimes life gets in the way and you put it aside, whether it's playing a guitar, sketching, painting, singing, whatever creative outlet you have, never stop it, because it'll help fuel the rest of your creativity and the rest of your career as a designer. So anyways, those are just a few of the things that I would say to anybody just starting out, as well as simply enjoy it. Design is a wonderful profession to be in. There's not many people that can say that their job is to sit there and create things on a daily basis. So enjoy it and embrace it. So thank you very much for your question, Antonio. Now, if you would like me to answer your question on a future episode of the podcast, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and submit yours. So thank you very much for tuning in this week. I have an interesting episode coming up next week. I actually have a guest on next week's episode. I won't tell you right now who it is, but I'll give you a little hint. The episode's going to be about creating and selling digital resources. So I hope that piqued your curiosity. Make sure you tune in. If you're not already, please subscribe to the podcast, and that way you know you'll never miss an episode. The podcast is found everywhere podcasts are available, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and you can even download the app for both iPhones and Android. And be sure to tell your friends about the show. Don't hoard it all to yourself. Spread the joy, spread the love. Let other designers know. I would love to have them as part of the community. So that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for sticking around. I always appreciate the time that you devote to listening to what I have to say. And until next time, I am Mark DeCote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business and reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.